Hello, everybody. This is Ken Tucker with Changescape Web. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Ian, Jeff, and Paul, and it is our special 200th episode. It's amazing to me. We started almost exactly 4 years ago, and really one of the main reasons, really a couple of reasons we wanted to create this podcast. One is we wanted to arm small businesses with good information about how they can really grow their businesses, using effective marketing. And the second was really to kind of warn them about some misconceptions that they might have, or even, dealing with some potential bad actors out there that push things, really tool vendors who push solutions hard on them where they're good for the vendor, but not necessarily right for the business. And so, it just seems fitting that we come back, and focus this particular episode on the biggest misconceptions that small business owners have when it comes to a variety of marketing topics. So today that's what we're going to go through, and really I'm excited about it because I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I hope nobody's offended. We all have misconceptions that sometimes we need to have people kind of remind us and do some sanity checking for us, because of knowledge that they have, and a bigger picture of a situation that they may have. And so this isn't intended to offend anybody. It's intended to help you navigate through the often murky waters of the ever-changing world of the digital marketing landscape. So with that, I am going to start with Ian. So Ian, um, let's see. How about tell me one of the misconceptions that I know you've shared with me, that you hear quite a bit, is that all digital marketing agencies will create a marketing strategy or marketing plan for your business. What are the misconceptions around that?
Yeah, and first of all, I didn't know we were going to offend people, so I'm strapping up here. I'm getting ready for this. Yeah, I think there's an assumption in the marketplace that first of all digital marketing agencies are created equal. I think there's also another and this is no fault of the consuming business, right? The consumer or the business buying the service. It's just a perception. Not all digital marketing agencies are created equal, and not all digital marketing agencies create a plan when you hire them. And even more than that, there are marketing agencies that will create a marketing plan for you, or they'll shoehorn you into their structure, which they would view as a plan, right? But I think one of the biggest things that we talk about a lot, and that's a holistic marketing plan that essentially becomes your marketing system. And I think that's a radically different concept that, in my viewpoint, even on the side of a pure holistic marketing plan, I have to tell you, like, the number of times I've run into that in the marketplace of competitive digital marketing agencies is minuscule. Like, I'm talking 2 to 5%. Like, it's so small. A lot of people, a lot of agencies will, drop a nice bullet point on their website saying they build marketing plans. There's always a marketing plan behind what they do, but rarely do they go out, do the research, understand your business, do an audit of your current digital marketing, build a plan around that, and truly understand who your ideal customers are that you're trying to attract, right? And then the implementation side is taking that plan and actually putting it into effect. So the some other kind of myths or misperceptions are that you only have to do a marketing plan, that it's a one-time deliverable. I know we view marketing plans as a living document. It's an untested but soundly developed plan But once you put it into the wild and actually start doing it and measuring the results, that's when you actually know, okay, yes, it was built on best practices. We had full confidence that it was going to work because we've seen it work before. But until you actually put it out in the wild, measure the results, optimize it constantly, you don't actually know how effective it is, right?
Yeah.
Um, those are a few of my thoughts, but I know that I do come up against this perception sometimes, and it does take some education, and equipping the business owner to understand, well, what questions should I be asking in order to understand what type of marketing plan everybody's going to be creating for me, when they go out for competitive quoting.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people just assume that if they hire a marketing agency that they largely have all of the same skill sets.
Yeah.
And that's far, far, far from the truth. And it may be hard for a small business owner to really kind of dig into that and kind of sniff that out, maybe. Um, but it's really important to try to do so because, as you said, having the marketing strategy in place is really important. I know, there are folks out in the marketplace that are very strong niche players, and they kind of come to the table with a certain amount of strategy, but every business is different. Your core message is different. Your ideal customers are different. Um, your geography that you serve is different. So you can't just drop it in and think you're all good, and hope that it goes. So
Yeah, and just to the one of the points you mentioned in there, Ken, is like if you actually don't do the hard work of understanding the uniqueness of the business, the uniqueness of the marketplace, the uniqueness of the ideal customer that they're trying to attract, and the marketplace that they exist in, their competitive set, without that data, how do you make data-driven decisions, right? You're basically taking best practices, hopefully, and putting them in play because they should work. And that's what a lot of agencies do is they've seen something work elsewhere, they put it in place in another market, but then you have to monitor it. But that's an uninformed or a lesser informed method than actually doing these deep audits, research, understanding what you can do. And by deep research, I'm not talking like, you pay an agency to go away for 6 months, they come back with this glorious plan that you can then implement. It's not like that at all. This is rapid research. It doesn't take weeks. It often takes days to gather the research, to develop the plan, to come back to you, and then ultimately to put it into place.
And
I think that saying, the value of the plan is in the planning, not the plan document. Right. And then,
Right.
the other saying that no plan, no battle plan survives first contact. Things are rapidly changing, especially in this world with technology. I mean, 2 years ago, who would have thought AI would be as dominant as it is now in things, right? And to try and chart everything out down to the minute detail just doesn't make sense. But doing the work, as you said, the competitive analysis, the positioning, the messaging, understanding the ideal clients, and then having a direction, a strategy. Strategy is different from a plan, right? But having the strategy that you're going to follow and use to guide you through the tactical implementation, I think, is important, and it's the value. Paul, I think I jumped in on you. Were you?
no, I was just gonna something that Ian said about it's untested, and it's always untested because you don't know. You can do all the research you want. You never know 100% what your competitors are doing. And the competitive environment is dynamic. And we're probably going to touch on that later, but it's not a one and done thing because your competitors are probably most likely doing things to try and stay ahead in the marketplace, and the marketplace itself is changing and technologies are changing. So it's a very dynamic kind of thing.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think is an important point for business owners too, because they've got their business to run. right? They've got their day-to-day, their production, their operations, their financials and everything to run. And to try and keep up with things that are rapidly changing is just one more burden. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Um, so marketing's supposed to be easy, right? I mean, that's
There's only 4 P's to it, right? If you know the 4 P's, you can nail it. It's like-
yeah, exactly. Well, you know,
old school.
one thing that jumps to my mind that's, you know, I think often missed because a lot of marketing consultants don't really, I mean, their goal is to drive what they think is action as fast as possible. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right action or it's for the right service. And I think it's really important for the business to take a step back and think about, all right, I don't just have one ideal client. I might have 3, 4, 5 different ideal client types. Who is really the best type of business for me to get from that ideal client type? You might spend a lot of money driving traffic to get you decent leads, but they're low profit margin. They're a grind. They're not the fun types of projects you want to do. That could very well be the case. As a matter of fact, I think that happens a lot. But if you take a step back and you think about it strategically and you do the work, you're going to say, oh, you know what? Even though this is only 20% of our business, here's where the majority of our profitability is. We want to get out from under having to work in this type of an environment. We've already got a strong enough track record. Let's make our investment, let's make our push toward this ideal client type. You know, that can dramatically change the face of a business. And, you know, I mean, in a world where we're living, you know, where it can be hard to retain or even find the people that you need, you know, to operate your business, you need to make sure that you're aligning that with the best opportunities that marketing can be driving for you. So with that, Jeff, let's talk about what misconceptions small business owners have about their websites.
Yeah, so websites is you know, one of my favorites. I see a lot of good websites, I see a lot of bad websites. But I think the biggest misconception is that, you know, I don't need one. I'm too small, I'm too local, or I can do a Facebook will be enough. I'll just have a Facebook page, or I'll just have a Google business profile, and that'll be all there is. And remember, in marketing, it's omni-channel, it's multiple parts working together. And really the website is the central hub of the online presence. It's people are going to look for it, right? That's what Google is going to index if you've got content. It's one of the things it's going to be after. And it's the place where you have the most opportunity to control the format, to control the layout, to control the messaging, the way you want to set it up, not just within the constraints of how many characters or how many headings or topics or categories some other platform gives you. So every business needs a website. The first myth is that the business is too small or too local. It's just got to be done. It's your essentially your digital storefront. The first thing people see.
Well, it's also social proof. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to look like a professional business in this day and age. So even if you're 99% business driven by referrals, and that's all you need, that's all you can handle, you still have to have a professional website.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with a business broker, business advisor, and that's often the lead in. He'll send people to us to first rework their website and then start working on other things. Or if we get going in a local SEO program, we'll first look at the website of the business and say, you know, are people that are getting to it from their Google profile, from the reviews, from Google search, are they seeing what they want to see? And you know, one of the things that we see a lot is no, it's minimal. It's all about the business, not about the client. And you know, how you frame things and how you draw people in. That's the goal, right? It's the funnel. It's you want to draw people in, take them through know, like, and trust down to doing business with you.
And you know, Jeff, to your point there, you said, "Oh, I'm too small," or I'm local." Just because you need a website doesn't mean you need a 2,000 page website.
That's true.
But you still need a website.
you need, the minimum viable product, what you need to position your business to connect with your customers, to draw them in, to give them a path of what to do next. I know, again, you're a story brand guy, right? Story brand's a great system. Story is incredibly powerful for, connecting with people. But at the end of the day, you still got to give them a call to action, right? So we see websites where people talk about their clients, they talk about the problems they solve, but then they don't ask them to do anything. We see websites where they're talking about themselves and not their clients. There's a whole lot of things, and it's all got to come together and draw them in, give them an action to take, engage them, and bring them into your marketing machine. It doesn't have to be fancy and expensive. You're right. It's just got to have the minimum viable product. Other myths. I'll build my website and then I can forget about it. Now, I mean, I look at websites that are 10, 12 years old and they look like they're 10, 12 years old. And then we wonder why they're not doing it. I was looking at one the other day that isn't even mobile friendly. It's 2024. A lot of traffic's coming from smartphones. How can you not have a website that's mobile friendly? A website that was developed even 5 or 7 years ago is looking long in the tooth now. So they need to be updated to keep up with aesthetics. They need to be updated to keep up with changing business conditions. And they need to be updated content-wise to be fresh in Google's mind. If you are going to use Google search to bring traffic to your website, and Google's got 2 relatively equal websites to present to the searcher, which is Google going to find more valuable? The one that hasn't been changed in 7 years, or the one that continually gets new content? So they're not one-time projects. They don't have to be big, huge, elaborate, expensive projects, but they do need to be, touched periodically and updated for aesthetic reasons, for content reasons, for freshness reasons. And they're not going to guarantee customers, but not having one is going to guarantee you don't have any online customers, right? Or many. It's part of the minimum, the price of doing business is a website. And another one I want to talk about later is email. But I mean, there's certain things you just got to do if you're a serious business, and you got to do them right. They don't have to be big. They don't have to be huge. They don't have to be expensive, but they've got to be done right. And that means paying attention to what's current and what's, needs to be there.
And, you had talked about some these older websites, and they even look old. And I guess it's been, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now. HTTPS wasn't even a thing. Now Google will penalize you for that.
Yep.
And one of the things that you talked about, Jeff, was minimal viable product, right? And I think I think you intend this, but just so our listeners, viewers know what we're talking about there, is that it's the expectations of consumers. There's a whole host of technical things in the background that make it a minimal viable product, but the expectations of the consumers is almost the biggest thing, because if they go looking for you and they find an outdated website or no website at all, you've just halted their whole buyer's journey, and that's to your own detriment, right?
Yeah, and by minimum viable product in the website sense, 6 to 12 pages can get a lot of work done. A lot of the heavy lifting is done in the 6 or 12 pages. If you look at the Google Analytics of most websites, they're not getting even traffic to every page on the site. There's typically 6 to 10 or 12 that are bubbling up and getting most of the traffic. Those are the ones that do the heavy lifting. Those are the ones that need to be focused on first and need to be built out.
Yeah, just today I was actually doing, publishing some podcasts for another podcast that I do. And we were not provided with the basic business information. So I had to go do some Google searches to go find it so that I could set up the podcast accordingly. 3 out of 3, I Googled their name and their location, and their website didn't even show up. They showed up. I mean, maybe their LinkedIn profile, maybe a Facebook page showed up, but website, So, man, I'm telling you, if you're getting a referral from anybody, an insurance agent, a real estate agent, whoever it might be, and they give your name of your business, and you make somebody have to work to find you, even though it's a referral from a very trusted source. Look, there's too many other choices. People are just going to move on. They're going to say, you know what? This must not be that credible of a business because I can't
Yeah,
even easily find their website.
to that point, Ken, there's another myth that, well, I don't want to build a website because I don't want to pay for search engine optimization. I can't afford it. Nobody's going to find my website if I don't pay for search engine optimization. It's just not in the cards. Well, there's a couple of aspects of that. Let's unpack it. You may not want to do SEO now, but you may want to down the road. So build the platform now. Don't like ignore it or don't do it wrong so that you have to do it over later. Lay the groundwork now. You can always add SEO later, but at the very least, to your point, Ken, your website's going to show up for branded searches. If somebody doesn't know how to find Changescape Web, you know what? There aren't many other Changescape webs out there. I'm pretty certain you're on page 1 of Google for Changescape Web, right? And I see a lot of branded searches in my clients. People don't remember their website URL. They don't remember the contact's name. They don't remember the phone number. They just remember the business, and they go out and they Google the business, and boom, there it is. So, I mean, it's going to show up for certain key things. Now, if you're a personal injury attorney, yeah, you're going to have a little bit harder time showing up for that one right away.
Sure.
But for you know, the low hanging fruit keywords, the long tail, it's for sure branded searches on your name, your business name. It's going to show up, and you want to claim that online property.
Yeah.
The interesting thing too is that like business owners inherently understand this concept when you think about brick and mortar locations, but they forget that most people are actually researching businesses now online rather than like, you know, hey, I think I'll drive down to Main Street and check.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like, you know, if you had a brick and mortar business and you either never unlocked your door or you never had any signage, that's essentially what it is. Like it looks like an abandoned building. They don't know,
Lights are
you know,
off.
how. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul, let's get to you here. So let's talk about some of the common misconceptions that small business owners might have about getting online reviews.
Yeah, I think one of the first misconceptions they have is that, well, I don't need reviews. My business is built around referrals. It's like, well, at some point you're going to run out of referrals, but yeah, they matter to Google. They matter to people. You know, there's data that people trust reviews as much as they trust a referral from a friend. And so, yeah, they absolutely do matter. And one of the myths out there, a couple that I'll touch on, is that only 5-star reviews matter. Well, that's not true. 4 stars reviews matter too, because people realize that businesses aren't perfect, and you're going to have a bad day, and a lot of businesses think that people only write reviews when they're peeved, but they're more likely to write reviews when they're upset. But that's why you have to ask for reviews. You have to be proactive, and there's a lot of things you can do. It's not something that's completely out of your control. You can ask for reviews. You can automate the process to a certain degree. I wouldn't fully automate the process because that can lead to some really, really interesting things. But there's a lot you can do, and it's a lot of times a lot of businesses think it's difficult or it's time consuming, and that's why I said you can automate a lot of it. And it's not just Google reviews either, because you're if you're a real estate agent, there are, like, what is it, Zillow, I think it is, where people will go and they'll leave industry specific reviews. Attorneys have the same thing. So yeah, Google reviews are probably, in the whole scheme of things, the most important, but there are certain industries where there are industry specific review sites that you need to be getting reviews on as well. And people read them and they do trust them. And so if you're not getting reviews and your competitors are getting reviews, you're at a competitive disadvantage. So
yeah, I mean, if you have no reviews, that still speaks volume, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
that's as bad as having 2-star reviews in a lot of ways, because it's like, is this a real business? You know, it goes back to the website thing. If you don't have a website, you're not even a real business anymore.
yeah, or people don't care enough about the product, service, or the delivery that you did to write a review ever.
Right.
That can look good for your business. So, I'm a big believer you don't want to allow communication gaps. And this is a huge communication gap. You need to look, we can't control the narrative anymore because there are just too many different channels and paths and touch points and things like that for digital marketing. We used to, as marketers, we used to be able to kind of, control the narrative. If we knew the 2 or 3 predominant channels that people were going to use, our messaging could drive people to take the actions we wanted. Um, we don't have that luxury anymore, but that still doesn't mean you don't try. You try like the devil to control the narrative and fill the communication gap, to provide the information that is needed every step of the way through, the buyer's journey, the marketing hourglass, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and if you ask for reviews after positive interactions, that's one way that you can, to some degree, control the narrative. Because
You're right.
being upset is a powerful motivator. So you have to ask, and there's
Yeah.
ways to streamline that process.
Yeah, it kind of
You
goes back
said,
to what Jeff was talking about too. It's about reducing barriers, right? There's actions that we all need our clients to take, whether it's when we onboard them, whatever it may be, but particularly reviews, because that's the public facing side of our business. And all the statistics show that, people read reviews, people read multiple reviews now, people read positive reviews as well as your negative reviews, people read recent reviews as well as past reviews, right? Like, we're all researchers at heart because we want to make the best decision possible. And again, if it same thing I said when you were talking, Jeff, like on the website side with reviews, you're doing yourself and your business a great disservice by keeping that door closed and not essentially having your greatest fans promote your business for free, right? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, one of the things that
when
I'm sorry, Jeff, but well, that just made me think of something. One of the things that's, I hear all the time is I don't want to ask for people to write reviews because they might write a bad review. And it's like, okay, well, if they do, then that's telling your business something that maybe you need to address. Or an example of an accountant. I don't want to ask people to write reviews because maybe they had a bad tax year, and they had to pay a bunch of taxes. And it's like, well, are they mad at you, or are they mad at the fact that they had to pay a bunch of taxes? You can differentiate that. That doesn't mean you don't ask or don't expect your clients to. The last thing I want to say before I forget is you need to be respectful of the review platform that you're using. Every review platform has different rules and regulations that you need to be aware of. If you aggressively ask for people to go write Yelp reviews, for example, you're wasting your time. Yelp's going to figure that out pretty quickly, and it's going to ignore most of those because Yelp is a user-centric, user-generated content-driven app. Just as an example, there are other platforms where, Paul, as you said, you can automate the process and ask people to go write reviews. But you need to understand that you can't just say, here are the 5 review sites I want to have you go write, and disregard the culture or the policies even, that those particular review sites have. Jeff, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, when Paul started out, he said, one of the myths is, oh, I don't need reviews. I get plenty of referrals. Well, if you really do get plenty of referrals, maybe, but when somebody gives a referral, what's the first person that gets the referral does? They go do their homework. They look you up. They look for the reviews. Boom, you need reviews. And how do you know how many referrals you're missing because you don't have reviews, right? It's one of those things.
Yeah.
If they never come and see you, you're never going to know it. And oh, my bad. I got my phone ringing to the back.
Yep. Trust but
I
verify.
usually put that outside the room when we're on the podcast. And then the other that threw me off my train of thought. The other topic I was going to respond to was the notion of, oh, I'm afraid of getting bad reviews. And your point is right on, Ken. You know, well, don't you want to know so you can fix those things in your business? But don't be afraid of a few bad ones. They're going to happen. You know, nobody has a perfect one. I used to, you know, do in-home sales, and I'd say, you know, we're going to work real hard to do well for you, but we're not perfect. The only perfect being I know is God, and I'm not him. But if we do have a problem, we're going to do our best to take care of it and fix it. And if you can show that through your reviews, if somebody does give you a 4-star, 3-star, whatever, and you can tactfully address it, that's even better than having all 5-star reviews, I think.
Well, and yeah, not only that, but I mean, if you show concern to somebody who even gives you a 1 or 2-star review, and you provide, you know, an explanation, and people see that you care and that you're trying to make the situation right, that oftentimes has as much influence on the fact that people make a decision, because it's like, man, maybe I ought to go check this place out, because even if they screw up, I know they're going to take care of me. Because everybody I mean, you know, yeah, as you said, this is not a perfect world. No matter how hard you try, you're not always going to be perfect. If you are, you're never going to deliver anything. So
Have you guys ever had businesses come to you and they say, man, I need help with my marketing? And so during part of just the research of a prospect, you know, you guys, I've had this where I look at their reviews, I look at their website, I just get an idea of who I'm going to be talking with.
Mm-hmm.
And you see an extraordinarily high volume of bad reviews. And from them, because it's pretty easy to get a sense of what's going on in a business. And I'm talking specifically about dentists in this particular comment, but like I've read some comments and reviews, and I'm like, these guys have a systemic operations issue that no amount of marketing can fix. Like, good marketing cannot fix a bad business. Like, you have to, you can do them tandemly. You can grow the business from a marketing perspective while you're fixing it. But unless the business owner understands that there's a problem, and to your guys' point, reviews are, you know, people are putting their hands up and saying there's something wrong here. And if you as the business owner aren't listening to that, that's a big problem.
yeah. Yeah. And reviews are generally going to skew to the negative if you just let them naturally happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well,
not
why
always
it's important
the
to
case.
ask for them. Ask, you know, because if
Yeah.
you ask, you can skew it back by asking for them.
Yeah, it's not always the case, but you know, it certainly is often the case, and I think that that's an important thing to realize. I mean, we as human beings, you know, the things that make the deepest impressions with us, and store the deepest memories are typically, you know, when we feel like we've been wronged, when we've had a bad experience, or you know, and it takes an equally great, extraordinary emotional situation to feel, you know, very positive about something and have that be a deep memory. So it's important to understand the psychology of what, you know, what motivates people to take action in a variety of ways.
And it's important to understand that people, like, we all live very busy lives. We switch rooms very fast in our minds, right? So, you know, if you're at a restaurant or a dental clinic or wherever you are, an HVAC guy comes, fixes your problem. You get your teeth fixed, you're overjoyed. You go to a restaurant, you have a great meal, you're overjoyed, you're spending time with your family. Once you leave, you're not thinking about that anymore. And that's just human nature. And that's why if you can prompt somebody after the fact and have that as part of your system for garnering reviews, turning happy customers into great online reviews, I think that's a win for everybody, as long as you're not, you know, overstepping bounds of policies and that kind of stuff. But it's just understanding human nature at the time.
Yeah. Just one last thing about that point. I was just reading an article this week that was talking about how does the brain decide what memories to keep? And, you know, just think about the scenario. I mean, to me, it resonates like crazy, and I think it probably would for most of our listeners and viewers. And that is, when you have a bad experience, it kind of grates on you, right? And so, somebody's like, "Hey, how's your day going?" He's like, "Ah, all right." I just, I had somebody, do this, and it just really kind of ticked me off. Well, you're telling that story, it's reinforcing that memory, and then the next time you see somebody, it's like, "Hey, what's going on?" It's like, yeah, I'm doing all right, but you know what? I had this situation, and again, you repeat it, you replay it, over and over and over again. And, you know, for me, maybe it's just the way I'm wired, but for me, the negative memories or the negative experiences are usually the ones that I find that I replay the most. And usually they get worse the more times I replay them. So maybe that's just me. Anyway, I want to ask one other follow-up question to you, Paul. Let's talk a little bit about this concept of, I want to ask people to go write reviews, but I only want to let them go write a review if I know they're going to write a positive review, a 4 or a 5-star review. We refer to that as review gating. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are some misconceptions there? Hello, Paul.
Did we lose Paul?
We
Yeah,
may.
sorry about that. I have my microphone turned off. So
You were giving an extraordinary answer, though.
Yeah,
I was,
we were riveted.
but I think what you're asking is it legal?
Well,
And
that's one thing. Yeah, for
it's
sure.
generally no, but the FTC has guidelines, and you can go look them up if you want. This is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney, but I think part of it, one of their guidelines is preventing people from leaving negative reviews. So if someone leaves a 2 or 3-star review and you direct them to a page that says, "Hey, what can we do to fix this?" And if you still want to leave a review, click here, however you want to phrase that, you're not preventing them. You're saying, "Hey, can we do something to fix this bad experience you had?" You'd probably be okay with that. But when you get into things like only asking people that are going to leave positive reviews, well, how are they going to know that? I mean, the FTC says you shouldn't do it, but how do they know you're doing that? When you send out an email request asking people for review, you can't say, you're really not supposed to say go to this platform or this platform and leave a review. You're not supposed to do that. And obviously you don't say, well, only leave a review if it's going to be 5 stars. That's definitely illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, and
But-
there
And
are
that's just
financial
asking for
penalties.
trouble.
Yeah, I mean, there are financial consequences for.
Oh yeah, I think it's up to like $44,000 or something like that.
Yeah,
But not just that. I think you're going to tick off a whole bunch of people if you were to take that approach anyways, right?
Yeah,
They'd
yeah.
be like, "Oh, I'm
It's-
going to leave you a bad review because you're idiots."
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
it's just a bad idea. So generally, review gating is not a good idea. But there's some things, it's one of those things where, like I said, how are they going to know who you're asking for reviews? Or if you're only asking for reviews that from people who had a positive experience, because you want to do that because the people that had a bad experience they're going to go leave a review anyway. So it kind of balances itself out. But it's one of the myths is everybody does it. Well, no, they don't, and there are actually these platforms are starting to crack down on that more and more. Yelp is really strict about that. Google is starting to crack down on it a lot more than they have in the past. And it protects my businesses from unfair reviews is another myth. Well, I think it was Ian earlier that said if you have systemic internal issues, and people have a bad experience dealing with your business, well, that's not an unfair review. It's a bad review, but it's basically pointing out a problem that you need to fix internally. So there's a lot of business out there that think if they get a bad review, it's not fair. Well, did they have a bad experience? If they did, then you want to try to take that offline and resolve the situation, but it's not necessarily an unfair review. So I would say generally you don't want to review gate. You
Well, I
want to.
think that review gating itself, I would consider to be illegal. You know, you can have something similar to that, but the whole concept of review gating is why they put the law and the penalties in place, because it was very, and so if you hear somebody using that term, I would run, because that's, you're treading on dangerous water. As you said, Paul, I agree. There are ways that you can kind of sort of maneuver around it. My opinion is don't even take that risk. Have thick enough skin to where if somebody leaves you a bad review, you're gonna take it to heart. You're gonna see if it is actually true and accurate about your business, or if somebody was just having a bad day. But either way, it's not the end of the world. And
No, it's not. And the best thing to do in that case is, like I said, try to take it offline, contact them and say, hey, we're sorry you had a bad experience. What can how can we fix this?
yeah,
And for businesses that are going through operational troubles and they know it and they're trying to fix it, you can still, like, as a business, depending on the platform, right? And depending how you approach this, you can still very specifically go out to the people that you know are your best fans and ask them, hey, would you mind leaving us a review? Right? Like, you can always do that as a business. So you're not review gating, you're not doing anything, you're just actually talking to your customers in a way that's a little bit more strategic than, taking the, yes, it's efficient, but it's a shotgun approach that may burn you, right? The
The other
alternative
thing, just
approach.
to jump in real quick on review gating, it's not just review gating, it's the whole notion of deceptive practices, right? And one thing that I think business owners also need to be wary on is cherry picking the reviews they show on their websites.
Mm.
And there are some widgets that'll plug into websites and will connect to Google reviews or review platforms. And you can say, pull out only 5-star reviews and show those on my website. Bad idea. What you show needs to be representative of reality, not cherry picked to make you look good. That's a deceptive practice.
all right, Ian, let's come down and let's talk about the fascinating world of artificial intelligence. I think there's a misconception out there that a lot of people think that they can just basically do pretty much all of their marketing using Chat GPT. Let's talk about some of those misconceptions around that.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of that misconception is that, first of all, you as the business owner will actually have any clue of whether the advice that the AI is giving is appropriate or not. I think right now, I think that is the biggest gap and blind spot I think that people have. So, as examples, I've seen business owners that have actually done this, where they've like said, enough with marketing agencies. We're going to bring this all in-house and we're going to save a ton of money because we're just going to use AI to generate our blog posts, our social posts. We'll even use AI to come up with our strategic marketing plan. Here's the challenge with that philosophy. First of all, you're assuming that the AI has the same level of expertise, experience, intelligence, data as the digital marketing agency, right? That's a big assumption. Yes, it is enormously powerful, Chat GPT and some of the other AI tools. But they're also, they have they only have so much information at their disposal, right? So, and they certainly can't have the same experience that, people that have been doing a job for years and years would have. Can it give you some guidance? Absolutely. You can plug into it and say, hey, here's the situation of my business. I'm trying to come up with a marketing plan, and it will pull together all of its enormous bandwidth of information and try to come up with a plan for you. But again, how do you know if that's the right plan for your business or the best plan for your business? The other side of that is, what if your competition is doing the exact same thing? It's, when Jeff was talking about websites, one of the biggest problems we all see with websites is if people don't do any kind of strategy associated with it, you get a very vanilla competitive environment of websites. So all the dentist websites, they might have slightly different looks and feels. They're all essentially saying, under the underlying message is, you have teeth, we can solve your problem, right? That's not very compelling. That's, who charges the least, because now you're a commodity. So, AI right now is super powerful, but it's still in its infancy. For those of us that have been watching and playing and using it for, a few years now, ChatGPT has only been around for just over a year, like publicly, for people to access. So thinking that it can do everything you want it to do is pretty naive. The other thing I think I've seen as well is where, and I've even seen some marketers try this, which is unfortunate, where the AI will spit something out and they're like, great, I have a blog post now. They put it up on their website, and then after the fact, they review it, or somebody they know reviews it, and they're like, that's a very odd blog post. Like, it doesn't fit with the tone of your business. It doesn't even, maybe it's got some of the keywords you were trying to say, but it actually doesn't have the level of expertise that you would normally associate with your business. Those are just kind of the big things that I see. I'd love to hear what you guys think, because I think this is such a hot button right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I think a lot of people think that it can literally do everything. I mean, I need ads written. I need web page copy. I need a marketing plan put together. Tell me who my top competitors are. What are the top keyword phrases? Sure, AI, it can get you a pretty good ways down the road in many cases. But, one thing that people don't often stop and think about is there are legal ramifications as well. If you have incorrect information on your website because an AI bot put it on there and you didn't bother, or an AI tool put it on there and you didn't bother to check it and verify it, you may have legal exposure. At a minimum, if it's incorrect, you may look like you don't know what you're doing when you're trying to prove to people that you are, the trusted go-to source. So you can't just, assume that it's going to be the end all be all. It doesn't even know everything that it should be doing for your business.
Right. It's a tool, right? And I think people forget that, because we've all watched movies with artificial intelligence in it, and we think, oh, like, this thing can do a job, right?
Yeah.
But it's, at least at this point, it's essentially a very smart tool, and you still need an operator, and the operator actually has to know what they're doing in order to guide the tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, go ahead,
I was
Paul.
gonna say, keep in mind that I think it's fixed now, so to speak, but up until about a year ago, if you asked ChatGPT who was president, it'd tell you Obama. So just because it comes out of AI does not mean it's correct.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, especially when
There's
you're
a
dealing with
delay in the-
information that needs to be current, and up to date.
Yeah, I think now it'll tell you I don't have access to current information. I mean, these large language models, they are models. They were trained on some data that was a snapshot in time, and it wasn't yesterday.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all the data either, right? It just
wasn't
can't.
all the data.
Yeah.
Right.
And the so-called hallucinations in AI, I mean, AI is very good at inferring things. If I see A and I see B and then C happens, and then I see A and B again in a different situation, C is probably going to happen. Doesn't mean it did happen. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen. But it'll tell you, yeah, it happened. And that's a hallucination. It's just based on something that's wrong. So that's where the human element comes in. It needs to be monitored. It needs to be controlled, and it's a tool. And anyone that's taking it verbatim, I'll just, write 1,200 words on, the need for transparency in financial transactions, and then they cut and paste it into their blog. Big, big, big mistake.
Yeah. So Jeff, keep going on that. I want you to talk a little bit more about, having AI write your content for you. What are some of the big misconceptions or issues there?
Yeah, so I think, one of the myths is that AI is replacing humans, and it very well may over time in 20, 50, 100 years. Jobs as we know them now may not exist, but you know what? Jobs that we knew 100 years ago don't exist today either, by and large, but they change, it evolves. So I think a lot of the writing task is being replaced by AI, but it's turning writers into editors because the human touch still needs to come in. They need to be involved. They need to put in sanity checking, the fact checking. They need to put in the tone, the context, I think as John Jantz calls it, that goes around generating content. They need to check for the hallucinations. They need to put in the examples and the case studies that a large language model may not have access to. So AI is not completely replacing human writers. It's just changing how they do their job. It's a tool to let them do a lot of the background, do a lot of the basic stuff, and then really turning writers into a higher level editors. It's good at short form. It's not as good at long form, but you can do a lot of short form pieces if you're guiding it. If you have that plan of how to guide it, you can do a lot of short form pieces and then stitch it together. There is a concern about the quality. I mean, for sure, if you play around with ChatGPT or any of the models, after a while, it's going to sound the same, and you're even going to look at content and go, "Oh yeah, that was written by ChatGPT." Certain uses of words. Now you can overcome some of that in the prompts by saying, my favorite, don't use the word bespoke. Don't use the word innovative. That's overused. But you'll start to recognize the quality of it starts to sound very one note, very robotic. Personally, when I use AI in helping to generate content, I'm using a suite of tools. I'm not using any one tool. I'm mixing and matching the best. And, I'm doing tone and voice analysis, and I'm doing pattern recognition for AI generated patterns, and then you can get a lot higher quality content. But again, it's the editing function. It's the higher level value add that we can add as humans, and that's great for me. I'm an engineer by background. I scored a 520 on the English SATs. Now over the years, I've learned more, and I can write a little better than I could then, but I still hate it. So I love getting into AI and using it to help me with it, but I've still got to do the final writing myself.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily get you penalized by search engines. That's another myth. Poor content will, and poor content can be human generated. So if again you take that AI generated content and you don't do the human value add to it, you're probably going to get penalized because guess what? I think like Paul said, if 5 businesses ask for an article on the same general topic, they're going to all have 5 articles that sound generally the same, and Google's going to go, yeah, who cares, right? It's that context and that value add and that differentiation, just like in your marketing and your messaging. What makes your business different? What makes your content different? What makes what you have to say different has to come in, and then the originality and the authenticity comes back through the human touch. AI is automating a lot of things. It's providing a lot more research and a lot more tools for rewriting, tools for tone and voice, actually fairly inexpensively. So I think there's a myth it's expensive. It can be. There are some expensive tools, and there are a lot of non-expensive tools, but the non-expensive ones, inexpensive, I should say. See, there's my English score. The inexpensive ones are very, very much in reach and very useful. But you still gotta provide the value out of the human side of it.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to creativity, it's certainly lacking. I was just playing around with it, and I asked it to basically put together a script for a performance. And I specify, I mean, my prompt was probably a good, healthy paragraph, and ask it to take into consideration, probably 10 different, 12 different things. And it did a great job of providing a structure, and an interesting structure at that. But still, it's like, okay, well, it's like I had a friend of mine take a look at it because I was just curious to see what their thoughts were, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of like first grade or first level or first year of college kind of a work. You know, it's like if you're really trying to differentiate yourself and create something that is remarkable. And again, you know, I mean, the word remarkable, I think, is really important. HubSpot, you know, stressed this at you know, when they coined the phrase inbound marketing, you want your content to be remarkable, meaning you want people to continue to talk about it, but also to also be remarkable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're okay with vanilla, you know, okay, it's probably it might be good enough, but it may also get you into some legal trouble,
Yep.
or make you look foolish. So,
Yeah,
all right,
I was gonna say, Ian had said earlier about someone just generated an AI article and stuck it on their website, and then somebody came back after the fact and looked at it. Microsoft and Google in their, because Microsoft does have a search engine, and in their algorithms, they do have AI detection, and if you do what Ian was saying, you may not get penalized. Google just won't index that piece of content, which in itself is kind of a penalty when you think about it.
And
It's
just to
lower
be
value
clear,
because it's generic.
I know we've had this conversation before where we actually unpack the idea of, like, Google will say they don't penalize websites, but like just what you said, Paul, is so important for business owners to understand. If your goal is to be found, then not
Better when
having
you
a page
Yep.
then not having a page index, in your view, would be a penalty. So be smart about what you post.
yep, yep. All right, Paul. Let's just kind of go quickly. I'll start with you. Let's do a couple each, just quick hits here of misconceptions that you guys want to address. So, Paul, I'll start with you, and then Ian, and then Jeff.
All right, since we're talking about AI, I'm gonna go with the AI bots on the
All right.
website. First of all, AI driven bots are not perfect, okay? So just keep that in mind. There's things you can do, there's ways you can train it, but they're not perfect. So test the bot and train it. I'm not gonna get into that. One of the myths is that they can completely replace customer care, like human centered customer service. They can't. They can guide them down a path. They can answer questions. They can actually, if you're using a self booking calendar, they can help people self book. They can do a lot of things like that. But they're they're not a replacement for customer service, and they're not all created equal. There's different functionalities that are available, and some of the simpler bots, they just don't have a lot of the higher level functions. So keep that in mind. Um, we're back to the one and done thing. Setting up an AI chatbot is a one-time thing, and it's not, because, well, maybe it is if your website never changes and you never add any new content. Maybe then it is. But if you're writing content and putting on your website, it is not a one-time thing. It's just like a website. It has to be maintained. And I've heard some business owners say that they don't want a chat bot because it'll scare people away because they want human interaction. Well, maybe it's true that they want human interaction, but it's not gonna scare them away, because what, are you gonna block them from seeing your phone number or filling out a contact form? It's just another tool that's there for your customers to use. If they just want to get some answers to their questions, they can type in a question and get an answer. And the other thing, and I'll stop with this, we're kind of long on time, but
It's our 200th episode. We can go for hours.
hours.
200 hours.
Hours? Is that
Your new customers are probably getting younger, okay? And they're gonna interact with that chat bot before they pick up the phone or maybe even fill out a contact form. So I think that's something a lot of times we forget is that if you're building a business and you have an established base of customers, and people get older, they don't get younger. So your new customers are probably going to be more apt to use technology. So that chatbot isn't going to bother them.
Yeah, I think you know, the misconception I hear is people think that chatbots aren't authentic. And it's like, you know, for certain tasks, what's more important is conversion. You know, I don't think people think about whether it's authentic or not. If you're putting in a, you know, something that says, what insurance do you take? And it comes back with an answer. And then it says, would you like to go ahead and book an appointment? You know what? You accomplished a major goal that we've been trying for decades to sometimes train some humans to be able to be that efficient at getting somebody to book an appointment. So, you know, don't just categorically, again, don't let your own personal biases dictate what you decide to do in terms of marketing.
But make sure you monitor the responses of the chat bot,
Sure,
because
sure. Yeah.
I've seen it where it misimplies things, just like what you were saying, like, oh, you take this insurance, when in fact the business didn't. Somehow
Right,
it filled in some blanks.
right, right. So Ian, let's go to you. What's another
Oh
misconception
man,
for you?
I have some favorites, and I won't take long on these, so because I want to get a couple in because I think they're valuable to people. The first is I hear this occasionally, and most people aren't this I don't know, brash, but some businesses we've talked to, they say, you know what, because I took marketing in university 15 years ago, I think I got a good grasp of what needs to be done for my business's marketing today. I don't think I need a plan. But on like, if we were to reverse that, and I'm looking, you know, for a dentist or a mechanic, and they haven't, you know, they didn't touch teeth or cars for 15 years, and then they're going to work on my car, I'd run, man. Like so it's, you know, you know, you got to stay up to date with stuff. I think a mechanic is actually probably a pretty good example. Like, car technology has radically changed, especially with EVs and that kind of stuff over the last 5-10 years. Same with digital marketing. It's changing. You guys can attest to this. It changes daily. It doesn't change annually. It's, you know, it's, you're holding on to this bull pretty strong to stay on it sometimes. The other myth I think that's really important, and whether people voice this or whether they think it, a lot of business owners have this one, and that's, you know, they pull you aside as a marketer, and they hush their tone a little bit, and they say, hey Ian, hey Ken, hey Jeff, hey Paul, you know, tell me the truth. Like, what's the silver bullet? What's the one thing I can do to, like, blow up my leads, like get so many leads I don't know what to do with? Like, I know you guys know the answer, and you just don't tell anyone because it wouldn't be profitable or something. I don't know. Like, instead of all that fake advice that you guys give out. And I used to hear this a lot. I hear it a little bit less now because I think people understand that there's so many elements in marketing, but there is no one secret silver bullet to help a business. The
It is the
closest
silver
thing
bullet.
the closest thing you can possibly get to that is developing a strategic marketing plan based on data, and then implementing that plan, watching it, monitoring it, and improving it over time. Like, that is the silver bullet of marketing, is to create a strategic plan and implement it. If you're looking for one tactic or one strategy, you're never going to find it.
So there is a silver bullet.
Well, it's a beverage, I think, isn't it? But or
You know,
it's
Ian,
something the Lone Ranger used to use.
Yeah.
I had that exact, you're looking for a silver bullet conversation with a client this morning, literally this morning on a call with a
Wow.
client. I said, there is no silver bullet. It's a compendium of things. It's a lot of moving parts working together. It's constantly evolving and changing. And because he asked, you know, what's the one thing I should do that will generate? It was exactly the question you posed.
The one other one, just because I feel like it has to be said, and I don't think anybody else is going to bring this one up, but it's that word of mouth marketing. They'll put the word marketing in there is all I need. And the businesses that are saying that to me and that we've talked and we've unpacked it a little bit, what they actually mean is they don't do any marketing. Just word, word of mouth referrals magically happen because they've been there so long. So, they're the incumbent dentist in the area. And that, yes, they do a good job, right? So there is natural word of mouth that happens, but that's not marketing. Like, marketing is actually an activity that you do. You have to have a plan and an action, and you have to be able to measure it. And those people who say that can't do any of that. They can't ramp up their word of mouth marketing when things are slow. They can't pull it down when things are fast, right? Like, so there are things that you can do in word of mouth marketing to help generate referrals. But I think it's important for businesses to understand that, man, like, word of mouth marketing can touch so many elements of your marketing strategy, but pretending you have a marketing strategy in place called word of mouth when all you're doing, is passively accepting referrals when they occasionally come in is not marketing at all.
Ian, I was going to hit on that topic.
Oh,
And it
good.
was
Then
a little
keep it
different
going.
angle. It was on the angle of, the myth is, oh, I don't need to market. I've got a great product. And that's essentially the word of mouth is what their expectation was. But, history is littered with products that were great products and they weren't marketed well. And I'll show my age, but for those of us that remember videotapes, Beta would have won over VHS if it was all about the product. And in the early days of the computers, PCs, Motorola would have been the processor of choice instead of Intel. It was technically superior. But it's all about the business and the marketing side. So the question I put to business owners is, well, how are people going to know about your product if you don't market it? And then, of course, that leads into the marketing budget, which is the other one I wanted to hit. And I think we'll do another podcast on that coming up in a few, just on budgeting and how to set marketing budgets and all the different factors that go into that. I mean, there's myths on both sides. I don't need to spend much. That's the extension of word of mouth's going to do it all. And then there's the I can't afford it. It's too expensive. And the thought I always leave people with is a saying by Peter Drucker, and I won't get the exact quote right, but it's essentially that marketing and production are the two functions of any business that generate revenue. Everything else is just overhead. You got to have something to sell, and you got to have a way to get people to know about it to come buy it. And we get into that a lot deeper, as I said, on another podcast. But that's a big one that I see a lot too.
And why you'd want to relinquish all the other opportunities to your competition by not marketing your business because quite frankly, I haven't met a business owner who doesn't believe they have the best product or service because they've worked so hard to build that. Why would they hide it? Why wouldn't they broadcast it to the world? It's like they're doing a disservice to themselves and to the world. Let the world know that you're there and that you can serve people.
Paul, you have one more?
I guess I could go using AI for online reviews, because we had talked earlier that there's ways to automate the process to a certain degree, but you really don't want to completely turn your review process over to AI. And it can't just magically improve your reputation, so to speak, because it's AI. I mean, it's not perfect, and it can do some weird things. So
I mean, you don't want to use AI to write reviews. That's very much frowned upon.
Even having AI respond to reviews is probably not a good idea. I don't know if AI is ready for the whole automating the review process yet.
I disagree with having AI respond to reviews. Now, they have to be human vetted, but
it can help.
Yeah, and honestly, it usually writes a better response than a human would, because it echoes back, again, assuming that somebody left a good, meaningful, keyword-rich review, which doesn't always happen. But when it does, you have an opportunity to reinforce SEO a little bit by echoing back some of the phrasing and the wording that the person put into the review. And AI does a great job of that. And the other thing is, it helps make sure that you respond to every review, which is also really important. Most humans drop the ball on that. So
let it write the draft, queue them up, and then you go in and edit them and click reply.
Yep. So I'm going to wrap up with just a couple. One is direct mail. I think direct mail can work really well. It's certainly become a lot less competitive. So we're in a pretty noisy world, and so using a direct mail strategy may actually be an effective way, if it's targeted correctly, to get your message out to the right potential buyer. But too many businesses just think they can do one and done. I'm going to send out 10,000 postcards, and I'm going to get a bunch of leads. And you send out one piece of mail to 10,000. Well, that usually doesn't work so well. So, and on the, kind of comparable to that is doing a cold email. First of all, cold email, is a really dangerous thing to do if you don't know what you're doing. There are ways that you can do it. It is not illegal for a business to send another business an email. Even if that business is not opted into a list, that's not technically illegal. It may be largely a waste of time, but it's not illegal like a lot of people think it is. But again, it's if you're gonna, just like anything we talk about, omni-channel, multi-touch. If you do it once and that's it, you're not going to get the results.
Multi-touch.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the things that I think are huge myths, that still to this day, or don't even do an email marketing campaign, which I know we talked about last week, because I hate getting email. Okay, well, don't let that throttle, one of the potentially most effective strategies you got. So we could go on for a very long time. As a matter of fact, I think we probably will on this topic. Maybe there'll be some news coming out of this here shortly. Guys, any other last thoughts that you want to hop in with?
No, I thought this was a great topic.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Yeah, so hopefully we didn't offend anybody.
But I'd just like to say, there's a lot of resources, and ask questions. We are marketing guides for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Engage with us, ask questions. That's what we want to do is help, as you said at the top, educate, dispel myths, beat misinformation, and be resources for people.
Yep, absolutely. So with that, Ian, let's celebrate our last 200th, it's not our last. Let's celebrate. There's the news, folks. Let's celebrate our 200th episode in style. Take it away.
All right. Are we going to have a dance party? Hold on. Let's see if fireworks. Woo!
There we go.
They're like coming right out of your head there, Ian.
I know. Big thoughts. Well, thank you to all our listeners and viewers to watching this. Thank you for being a part of this and for your contributions to this. Thank you guys. This is always a blast for me every week. I enjoy getting together and talking marketing with like-minded pros. So you guys are awesome. And for our listeners, let's make the next 200 even better. Send us your comments, send us your wishes, your biggest marketing burning challenges that you want to overcome, and we would be happy to chat with you about those or to produce a podcast about those. So until next week, folks, keep calm and market on.